The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Something a little bit different from me this time around. We're just going to do a very basic look at how to use ViewPoint for technical analysis purposes. That's what Standard Bank Online Share Trading has asked me to do, so I've spent a little bit of time looking over it. It's not my normal go-to platform for technical analysis, but it is pretty adequate, I must say, and I've been quite impressed with playing around with it and seeing all the various functionalities and things that it can do. And I think for basic technical analysis, it really is pretty adequate. I just want to check before we start and I go any further. Can you just raise your hands if you can see my screen and also if you can hear my voice, please? Okay, that looks good. So it seems like there's plenty of people listening. And we've got quite a good attendance today by normal standards, actually. So it's good to see such a strong number of people here today. All right, let me move away from this slide and move back onto the ViewPoint platform now and show you. Now, obviously, this is your basic sort of standard layout in terms of how your ViewPoint will look when you start and you get going with it. What we're going to be focusing on today specifically is the charting section of it. So that's what you see there where I'm pointing that out now. And I'm going to expand that. You can see the little widening arrows indicated there where I'm dragging my mouse there. That will basically allow you to expand a graph to broaden it. And then you can do your analysis in a bigger window pane, which makes it a lot more easy to see. All right, so basically, I'm going to go through it in the way that I would set up a charting template and how I would effectively start doing my analysis from scratch. So this is the basic. When you first start out looking at your ViewPoint system, this is what you'll get in terms of a chart. It's very basic. It is a candlestick chart. As you can see, what I mean by candlestick chart, if I just zoom in a bit more and explain that to you, you'll notice that all of these bars or these daily representations of the trading activity are look like candlesticks. They've got a body and they've got a little wick on either end in most cases. And that's the common terminology is this is candlestick charting. Candlesticks were originally developed by the Japanese many hundreds of years ago to measure rice prices. And then it turned out that you can use that methodology to measure anything that's got a price that moves around. And candlestick charting is my preferred go-to in terms of charting. The alternatives are, and I'll show you some of them. If I click on the graph itself here, you can see once I've clicked on it, you'll notice these little sort of circles appear that shows that the graph is now highlighted. And what I could then do is go here where it says candles, where I'm dragging my mouse over that now. You can drop that down and it gives you a whole bunch of other options as well. So you could set it up as a line graph if you want. So it's a line graph. All it does really is joins the highs and lows. Sorry, not the highs and lows. It joins the daily closes from one day to the next, and draws a line between them. It's interesting. It gives you an idea of the trends, etc., but it doesn't give you very much insight into the actual trading dynamic between buyers and sellers on an intraday basis. So for that purpose, I far prefer looking at a candlestick chart rather than a line graph. The other options that you can see here are bars. So there's your bar graph as well, similar to candles, but I think candles represent things better. And you've got other options there, hollow candles, the Heiken Ashi, an area graph if you want that, etc. But as I say, I'm going to use the candlesticks because I think that is, to me, it's my standard port of call in terms of how I look at graphs. And then what I'm also going to do is I'm going to change the color of the candles because I think red and green are, a lot of people are colorblind. I'm actually one of those people. I am slightly colorblind. Not that it makes a big difference between the red and green for me, but I do just think that it's easier to change the colors to be far more stark. So what I like on my graphs is to have my up candles or my bullish candles, set them as white, and my bearish candles, set them to black. Like that. So I've changed it over there, as you can see. You can also play with the colors of the borders if you wish. You can change with the color of the wick, etc., etc. But for me, that black and white is nice because it's stark, you know, and whether you're colorblind or not, you can see that quite clearly. And all my graphs, my templates have my candlestick set up like that, black and white. Just to quickly explain what that means. When you've got a a hollow candle or a white candle, what that means, let's just take this one here, for example, that nice big broad, that's actually a bullish engulfing candle. What it means is that your price opened at the lower level and it closed higher than where it opened. And when you get a situation like that, that's where your price is effectively closed higher than the open on the day, and it implies that the buyers effectively won the day, as it were. The opposite is where you get a black candle or a closed candle, and that means that the price opened at the higher level, closed at the lower level, and then it shades the candle in to show that it's black. So ordinarily a white candle in this case is termed a bullish candle, and a black candle in this case is termed a bearish candle. All right. The next thing that I want to just specify quickly in terms of setting this up, and I'm once again going to double click on the graph area itself, is go to the scales here. And what's quite important is to set your graphs to log scale. It doesn't change things much over the short term, but on a longer term basis, you'll find that a log scale graph is very, very different to a non-log graph over the longer term. Let's just illustrate that point quickly. So it's on log scale at the moment. So I'll click on OK, and let's zoom right out and show you. Now to do that, to zoom right out, you can either click on one of these periods down at the bottom here, 1 year, 5 years, etc., or you can simply grip the bottom of the graph where the days and the dates are, and you can pull it across. And by pulling it across to the right like that, I'm essentially pulling in more and more and more data. And you can go back a long way. See here, so far we're going back to 2014, and we can keep going. All right, and you'll see how the system loads more and more charting data. Now, at the moment, this, by the way, is a chart of Standard Bank that we're looking at here. And it goes back all the way to 2012 in this case. As I said to you, I've set this at the moment as a log graph, but if I change that, double click on the graphing area again, and I change it to non-log or linear scale, then notice how it'll change the shape of this graph quite dramatically. All right, and when it comes to setting out your trend lines and what have you, it does make a difference. Most technical analysts will use a log scale graph. So it's important to start out by setting your graph to the log scale. And there are a variety of other things that you can play with here. A lot of it is just cosmetic. You can choose if you want to have your price data on the right axis and the left axis if you want. So if I click on left axis, you'll notice now the price data appears on the left-hand side as well. So you've got it both on left and right. And you can play around with this sort of thing. You can also play with the background colors and things if you wish to. But I like to keep it white and basically keep it clean like it is. And I think you'll notice with the charting template that I'm going to set up here that I try and keep my graphs as clean as I possibly can. That is important, and a lot of the best technical analysts that I've ever followed in my time generally keep their graphs quite clean. There's not too much clutter, not too much noise around. All right, so let's just zoom back in again a little bit more on the more recent trading activity. And I'm doing that now by gripping the dates at the bottom and simply pulling them across to the left, as you can see, left clicking and pulling across to the left. All right, and there's the more recent data. We've basically got the last, say, 9 months or so worth of trade on Standard Bank illustrated over here at the moment. All right, so that's the first thing. We've got candlestick graphs, we've changed the colors, and we've set it to log scale. The next thing that I like to put onto my chart is a moving average. Just before we get there quickly, just one last thing before I forget. Notice that this is a daily graph. What it means is that every candlestick pattern here is representing 1 day worth of trade. Now that little D that I'm pointing out over there at the top left there, that is the indication of the period of the graph. Now if you click on it, you'll notice you can drop that menu down and it'll give you a whole bunch of other options. So if I want to go out, I can go and look, for example, at a 1 week graph instead of a daily graph. And now we're looking, so what that means now is that every candlestick pattern here represents 1 week worth of trade as opposed to 1 day worth of trade. And it is often useful to start further out. So start with a longer term time frame and then zoom in on your more recent trading activity. So we start with a weekly graph like we have here to look at the trends, etc. Then we would zoom in and go down to a daily graph. And then once you want to get even more intricate looking at the trading activity, you can then even go down to, for example, a 1 hour graph if you wish to. All right, and there's shorter time periods available there as well. You can see it goes all the way down to a 1 minute graph if that if you choose to. Personally, I seldom ever go much shorter time frame than 1 hour when it comes to trading stocks. But if you're trading something like an index, maybe you're trading the top 40 futures, then you would then you might well look to go down into a shorter time frame. But for stocks, as I say, I seldom go lower than 1 hour. But I'm going to focus most of my analysis here now on the daily graph, and that's what I've resumed it back to now. The next item on the menu at the top here is this indicators window. If you click on that, you'll notice that it drops down a whole bunch of different indicators. Now I haven't counted them, but there's lots. I mean, I would guess there's possibly 100 indicators here. Many of them, I must confess, I don't know what they do. I like to try and keep my analysis simple, and I like to try and keep it pretty much common to what is mostly used in the technical analysis world. And the reason I say that is because technical analysis very much works because people practice it. It's a self-fulfilling exercise. And for that reason, I like to pretty much do the same analysis that most other analysts in the market are also looking at. If you go and find some obscure indicator that's not widely known, you might get readings that not everybody's looking at, which might not necessarily translate into a positive edge for your trading. So when it comes to setting up a trading template, you'll see that I'm going to use some of the most basic, the most well-known and common indicators that you have on a chart. The next thing, and to that point, that I want to add on is a moving average. So you can drag it down, and there you can click on moving average, and if I do that, it'll add a moving average. Now the default moving average that it's on, that puts on here, is a 9-period moving average. Just to go back and show you what I did there, that there indicates the moving average right there. And if I click on the little format logo, the format icon, I can then change it. So the first thing that I'm going to do is change that to a 50-day moving average. All right. And the style, I'll change the color, I think, to red. That's just something I prefer, and I'm going to make it a little bit fatter using that tool there, right? And what else can we do here? We're going to use the close, because you can decide whether you want your moving average to be calculated off the high, the low, etc. I'm going to use it off the close. That's the normal setup. All right. And also just to note here that this is it's a simple moving average. All right, it's not an exponential moving average. There's another option on the indicators drop-down menu for an exponential moving average if you wish to have that. Right. So if I click on OK, that will stay there. That's that 50-day moving average. I also like to put on my graphs a 200-day moving average. So I'm going to click on that again, and I'm going to once again go down to moving average. There it is. Okay, and again it defaults back to a 9-period moving average. I click on it. Notice again when I click on it, you see these little circles that appear on the moving average. I can then go back to that format function. I'm going to change first of all, I'm going to change the length. I'm going to change that to a 200-day moving average. Right, and click on OK there. Let me just click on it again. Sorry, I wanted to change the style as well. I'm going to then change it to green, and I'm going to make it a little bit fatter as well. All right, what you'll notice here now is that 200-day moving average only starts quite recently. That's because it's only calculating off all the data that's actually presented on the chart at the moment. And 200 days goes back quite a long time. 200 trading days is about 9 months. So if I want to bring that 200-day moving average and have more history of a 200-day moving average, what I'm going to need to do is just stretch the graph in a bit. So once again, to do that, I grip it at the bottom and I pull it across to the right-hand side and to pull in more data. And notice you'll see as I do that, the 200-day moving average begins to grow in length. All right, and so it will grow more and more in length if I stretch that graph more and more. Okay, so those are the two moving averages that I typically use on a daily graph. The reason for those two is that a 200-day moving average really gives you a very good indication of the long-term momentum, and the 50-day moving average gives you an indication of the medium-term momentum. Medium-term to me is sort of 2 to 3, maybe 4 months. That's the medium term. And a 50-day moving average essentially if you take only trading days into account, it's 2.5 months worth of trading activity. And what I would like to just mention here, and it's a very basic rule of thumb, but if you try to align your trading activity with the direction of the 50-day moving average, then what you'll generally find is that you improve your odds of success. So when the 50-day moving average is pointing upwards, you'd be looking for long signals. When the 50-day moving average is pointing downwards, rather don't look for long. Possibly you might be looking for short signals in that type of environment, but it goes along with the lines of thinking of the direction of flow, and you want to ideally align yourself with the direction of flow when you're trading. And to that point, the 50-day moving average gives you a very good indication on your medium-term direction of trade. All right, so far we've got a candlestick graph, which we've set up to be the colors we've changed. We've got the log scale set up. We've added a 50-day moving average, and we've added a 200-day moving average. The next thing that I would like to put onto this graph is an indicator that looks at momentum. So here I'm going to look at two. I'm going to look at the stochastic oscillator, and then I'm going to look at the relative strength indicator. So if I drop that menu down, then we're going to go down here, and I'm first of all going to find a stochastic oscillator. There we go. That's it there. And I click on that, and it'll bring it in right there. Okay, and you can see it's the squiggly lines along the bottom. Now, if I just expand it, and to expand that, what you can see I do, I simply grip it at the top of the window there where the little arrows open up. And if I broaden that, you can see it expands it. Your stochastic oscillator will always oscillate between a value of 0 at the bottom and a value of 100 at the top. All right. And you've got a horizontal level here, 20, which at the bottom, any reading below 20 is considered to be oversold. And then you've got another horizontal reading here at 80, and a reading above 80 is considered to be overbought. All right. Now the periods that we're going to look at, let's just quickly check. If you want to format any of this data, you can simply go and where that little star type icon is, or it's a little gear, call it what you like, but anyway, you drag your mouse over it, it says format, click on it, and then you can look at various different things. It'll tell you the various different time frames, etc. So the default here is set to a 14 period moving average, smoothing of 1, so I'm going to change that to 3, and I'm going to change that to 5, the smooth D, and that just suits me a little bit more in terms of the analysis I do. Again, you can amend these figures and these readings to suit yourself and to suit your own style. I'm amending them to what I typically use and the periods and the time frames that I use on all of my graphs when I set up a charting template. All right, so there's our stochastic oscillator. I'm just going to drag it down and make it a bit smaller again. Okay, and then what I'm also going to do is I'm going to add in a relative strength indicator. So once again, I click on that indicators button at the top there, and here are all the indicators. If I go down and I drag this all the way down, you'll find that I can find the relative strength index. There it is over there. And I click on it, and there it comes straight onto the graph at the bottom there. All right, and that's also a reading of momentum. Now, if I click on that to just check the period, when I click on it, you'll notice those little circles come onto the window. And again, I click on format. All right, it's set as a 14 period relative strength index, which is fine. That's what I typically have as my standard. All right, so those are the main things I would want on a charting template. One other thing that sometimes you may wish to add is volume, and we can do that if you want it. The graph does begin to become a bit busy if you put too much of this stuff on, so I don't want to overdo it. But let's just quickly I'll show you how to put on volume. Just for the purposes of this. There, if you click on the indicators window at the top and you drag it all the way down here, you get volume. All right, and there pops up the volume bars on the chart at the bottom over here. It's up to you to decide whether you want that or not. I mean, if you don't, you can click on it and you can basically delete it, which would be that little icon over there. I'm going to leave it on for the time being, I think. If it starts to get in the way, I'll take it off. But volume is sometimes useful to know. And when I am particularly interested in volume is often when you actually get a volume spike. And you might then want to delve into a little bit more as to why a volume spike occurred and if there was any particular reason around that. All right. Now, the next thing I would do at this point is start to save this as my template. So you've got buttons at the top over here where you can say save chart, and you can drop down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save as, and I'm going to call this Garth Daily. Now, it doesn't like spaces for some reason, so if you're going to put a name in, you need to maybe use an underscore. So I'm going to say Garth _ Daily daily chart, like that. Okay, and I click on that. Right, now that that is saved, you'll notice if I click on this load button here, that template is already loaded for me. Okay, and I can now go and look at any other chart, any other stock that I wish to, and then load that template for it. You'll find, because I've got it on autosave over there at the moment, there's an autosave icon. You can switch that on or off at the top right. I would advise probably leaving it on, because it means that the analysis that you've done stays, and it's always there in future if you want to then use that analysis or view it again. But if I go and look at another chart, let's just go and, for example, look at Anglo Platinum here, and that, by the way, and let me just do that again for you. Oopsie. Expand that. Sorry about that. If you're wishing to change the security or change the stock that you're looking at, that very top left window there is where you would do that. So you can then go and type the share code of any stock into that window. If you don't know the share code, you can also simply type the name. So if I go Anglo, right, it brings up all the Anglo-American PLC, Anglo-American Platinum, etc. Right, so the one that I'm looking at is just Anglo-American Platinum. For argument's sake, right there it comes up, and you can see that there's changed the graph. Now we've got the same template, same indicators, etc. Everything else, the same 50-day moving average, 200-day moving average, etc. It's all there on the template that I set up. All right. Now, what if I want to go in and I want to now start drawing some trend lines and things here? Because remember, trend lines are the most basic, but probably the most important aspect of technical analysis that you could have. If you said to me that you're only allowed to have one tool and one indicator in your toolbox, and you have to throw away all the others, the one I would keep is the trend line, because the trend line really is it's the most basic, but yet the most important aspect of, most important tool in technical analysis, I believe. So to do that, we're now going to start looking at all of these functionalities on the left-hand side here. The first line there, or the first option at the top there, just below that cross, that is the trend line. You can see I'm dragging my mouse over it there. There's a little arrow there. If I click on the little arrow, you'll notice it's got all sorts of other functions here. So there's a normal trend line, which I'm going to use now. Then you can draw horizontal lines and rays and vertical lines and arrows and all sorts of things, parallel lines, etc. So there's quite a lot of functionality that you can use here in terms of of trend lines. I'm going to simply click on the top one there, the ordinary trend line. And then what you do, it brings up a format option here where you can now decide, with the width of your trend lines, etc. You can change them. You can change the style a little bit if you wanted a dotted line or not, etc. There's a few things you can play with. There's also the color that you can play with. So I'm going to make my trend lines blue so that they stand out a little bit from the rest of the chart. They won't get confused with the candlesticks. They won't get confused with the moving averages. Blue is quite a nice bright color, and it does stand out from the colors I've used currently. Now, to draw a trend line in, the first thing you do is you find the part or this place at which you want to start that trend line. So I'm going to start it down there back in June of last year. I'm going to click once, right? And then I release, and I then pull it. And I can keep going and keep going and keep going. Once I've decided that that trend line is in place where I want it to be, I then click on it again, and then it effectively lets it go. And now that trend line is in place. All right, and there it is. I can always move it again if I want to. Notice that if I hover my mouse over it, the little balls or the little circles come onto the end of the trend line, indicating that it is active. And if I click on it, I can then go and grip those ends again, and I can pull that trend line around and move it as I please if I want to. And then once I'm finished, I simply click away and leave it, and then it'll be locked in place over there. Right, and I can continue to do that. I can continue to draw other trend lines. So if I want to look at some of the patterns or some of the other things I'm seeing over here at the moment, I can once again click on that trend line, and I can go and I can draw, for example, there I saw a like a falling wedge type of pattern. Draw another one here. There's a little falling wedge pattern that we identified in late May, and as that stock started to break up, that started to look bullish, and you can see the share price has moved up quite nicely since then. As I mentioned, there are other options as well in terms of your trend lines. You can go and you can put, for example, a horizontal line. So if I want to do that, I can then go and just basically anywhere on the chart, I can click on it where I wish to put that, or where I wish to position that horizontal line. So if I'm looking at that low point from late May over there, which kind of corresponds with the low point in February, I may wish to put a horizontal trend line there. I'd simply click it once, and there's my horizontal line. Now it's a little bit thin. You might see that that starts to get confused with the grid on the back of the chart. So what I can do is hover my mouse over that trend line. Notice the little ball that pops up, indicating that that trend line is now active. I click on it, and I can go back to the formatting window, and I can select the width. I can make it a bit fatter. I can change the color now if I want. I can go and make that, I don't know, let's make it pink, just for argument's sake. Right, and notice that it stands out quite proud from the rest of the analysis that we've put onto the chart here. And then if we carry on further down on the left-hand side over here, you'll notice there are other things here. So that pitchfork there, if I click on it, it gives you a whole bunch of other options here. Now it starts to get quite a lot more complex. And a lot of this stuff I don't really use. The pitchfork I don't use, but I'm just going to show you them all here anyway. The GAN things, GAN fan, it's not something I've typically used. A Fibonacci retracement is something that I use fairly regularly. And I would say on this drop-down menu, it's probably the only one really that I would say I'm going to spend any time focusing on. So let's just click on the Fibonacci retracement. And what a Fibonacci retracement does is it allows you to measure from one point on the chart to another, where you can then look at the retracement level. So I'm going to just pick the significant points on this trend line, right? That was in January this year. I click there first of all, and then I left click and I pull it away to the point where I'm wanting to measure to. So if I go and I say, well, I want to measure to the top of that peak there, which was in May of this year, I can do that and then simply click again and let it go. Now you'll notice there your Fibonacci retracement levels are plotted out for you quite nicely. If I zoom in a bit on the chart, you'll see it more clearly. And again, if I want to stretch this either up or down, now if I want to, for example, right now I feel the urge to stretch this chart a bit taller so that I can really get a better feel for those Fibonacci retracement lines. You can grip the price on the right hand side over here and drag it. All right, now I've dragged it quite broad, but now of course what it's done is it's taken some of the trading activity out the top of the window. Not a problem. All I do is I go somewhere into the window of the chart and grip it, and then that little hand, and I can grip it and pull it down, and I can maneuver that chart anywhere I wish, up, down, left, right, etc., so that it suits my needs. All right, and then notice what's quite interesting here is that we've got that Fibonacci retracement. It started from the low that we saw in basically it was the end of December last year, really, or January this year. We had that rally all the way through to April, and the share price of Anglo Platinum then began to retrace from there, and it pulled back. Now notice how it pulled back exactly 50% of that rally. So the rally from late December until April, then half of that, essentially 50% of that rally is what it gave back, and it stopped exactly at that point, and then it began to bounce again. So it's quite interesting to note how these Fibonacci retracements do come in, and they can be quite handy to use in your analysis. If you do start to see something like what we saw there, where you've got a long-term trend line and you've got a 50% Fibonacci retracement level, etc., and notice your stochastic was quite oversold at that point in time, so was your relative strength index. All of those things start to tie up quite nicely. You start to get the potential for a buying opportunity, as was the case there, which would have set up quite a nice high probability trade. All right, this graph is becoming a little bit cluttered now, and as I said, I don't really like busy cluttered graphs, so I'm going to actually just take the Fibonacci retracement off there, okay, and just try and keep it clean. Now, what else have we got down here? If we go and look at the other indicators or other functionality on the left of the graph here, there are things you can add in. You can add in things like rectangles. If I want to put a rectangle around a particular trading area, I click on it once and then I drag it and I click it again to let it go. And there I've put a rectangle around that area. If you're wanting to highlight it for whatever purpose, you can do that. You could also go and then play with the formatting of this as well. If you wanted, you can change the background color, etc., to play with it as in how you seem fit, right? So that's a rectangle, and there are various other shapes and things we can look at here if you wanted to do an ellipse or a triangle or an arc, etc. Let's do the ellipse quickly. There's our ellipse. I can highlight that area with an ellipse, and there it is. And again, if I want to, I can now go and play with the formatting here. I can change colors on the background, etc., etc. All right. I'm going to just take it off again because we're not using it for any particular purpose right now. Then if we go down to the next one, that little T that you see over there, it gives you the option to put in text and various other things, balloons, little bubbles that you can put speech into, you can put arrows in, etc., etc. So if I wanted to, for example, use this arrow to indicate where points were on the graph where the trend line was touched, I can put that on and I can draw. Again, this is all cosmetic stuff. It's really not going to be significant in terms of your analysis. So I don't want to spend too much time harping on about it, but I'm just showing you the functionality that is available here. All right, if I want to take these things off, I simply go and click on it and then I hit delete on my keyboard. There we go. And then the other one's gone as well. All right. Over here, also a whole lot of other Elliott wave functionality, things that I also don't particularly use, but again, it just shows you this ViewPoint platform is fairly versatile. It does offer you a fair amount in terms of analysis tools that you can use. This is stuff I don't much use myself, but it is there if you wish to play with it. And I think that's what I would advise really with the platform is play around, see what you can do. You can't break the thing. So and anything you do that you don't want, you can always just remove it and you can delete it off your chart. All right. So there's a variety of other things down here. I think in terms of the time that we've got, I want to just play around a little bit more with some of the more important analysis tools. And the next thing that I would look at now is if I'm wanting to look at a sector, for example, I'm looking at stocks in a sector. What is also quite useful to do is to compare one stock with another to then understand which one is outperforming and which one is underperforming. So right now we've got Anglo Platinum on the chart here at the moment. I'm going to just take some of these trend lines off because they are not necessary right now for what I'm going to show you. I want to try and keep the chart clutter free and as simple as possible. Now, if you have a look over here, there's a button at the top here called Compare. If I want to go and compare this stock, I want to compare Amplats to another stock in the market, I can click on that. And obviously the logical first stock that would spring to my mind if I'm going to compare it to another stock similar would be Impala Platinum. So if I click on Impala, IMP over there, I type it in, then it'll drop it down in the menu and I can pop it in. I'll just click on it once, and there you see the chart of Impala Platinum has come up with that line over there. I can change the color of it if I want. I can click on it and then I can go and change the formatting to be whatever color I wish. Have I got the right thing here? Yeah, I have. I'll make it blue. Right, there we go. And again, if I'm looking at a relative strength comparative, I'm going to look at it probably over a 2 to 3 month period in terms of the style of trading that I do. So I can zoom in here a bit and have a look. Notice that you'll see how these two charts start at the same point always, right? They've got the same beginning reference point. And also notice now how that price on the right-hand side of the graph has now been replaced by a percentage. So what it's simply saying is that both stocks started at a 0 percentage point back in, I'm going back now to February sometime, so we're talking a couple of months here, and they both started at that same point, and now how have they performed? Impala Platinum, of course, is the blue line, right? And Anglo Platinum is the candlestick chart over there. And without a shadow of a doubt, you can see quite clearly here that Impala Platinum has been the outperformer. That stock is up 74% in that period of time, whereas Anglo Platinum is up only 26 odd percent. So Impala really has been the big standout performer over here, right? And it's always useful to do that with stocks. Usually you would want to measure stocks that are similar to one another. So you'd look at something like an Anglo Platinum and an Impala Platinum. If you're looking at banks, you might look at Standard Bank versus First Rand or ABSA or Nedbank, right? If you're looking at telecoms, you'll look at Telkom, MTN, and Vodacom, and so on, right? If you're looking at the gold sector, you'd look at Goldfields versus Harmony versus Anglo Gold, etc., to see which one is the strongest and which is the weakest. Okay, so that's quite a useful functionality in terms of being able to compare one stock with another. I'm going to remove that Impala Platinum comparative right now, just to, again, keep our graph quite clean. What I want to do next is actually zoom in and now start setting up a different charting template, which is an hourly charting template. When I'm looking at an hourly graph, I typically look at some different things to what I look at on a daily graph. So let's do that now. Let's actually take this graph, and instead of looking at a daily graph like it is right now, let's go to where that little D is, click on it, and I'm going to change the period to 1 hour. All right, and here we have the 1 hour chart for Anglo Platinum at the moment. Right, we can just going to stretch it around so that it's a little bit more easy to see. Right, there we go. In this case, I'm going to probably take the volume off because I just find that it's too, makes the chart too busy. So I click on it, I right click on it, and then I click on delete, and it's gone. Okay. When it comes to my hourly charts, I'll probably use an RSI, not so much a stochastic. So what I may do here with the stochastic is just simply remove it. And if you see that little X on the window there, I'll hover my mouse over it and it says delete. I can take that off. And then when it comes to my RSI at the bottom, the relative strength index, I'm just going to expand it slightly. What I'm going to do here is just change the formatting, and I'm going to make it a little bit faster. So I can go back to the inputs here, and I can make that, I can make it, for example, a 5-period RSI if I want, which is quite fast. Possibly a little bit too fast actually, but I'm doing it because I want to show you what a very different template looks like here. All right, so there I've got my RSI set up as I want it. In this case, the 50-day moving average, I don't want a 50-period moving average. What I want to do is change this now, and in fact, I'm going to delete it altogether. What I want to do now is put in a 15-period exponential moving average. So what I'll do is I'll go to the top here and I'll click on indicators, and I will then get all these indicators again that I showed you previously, drag it down until I get to moving average exponential. All right. The difference between a moving average, just sort of normal, what we call a simple moving average, and an exponential moving average. An exponential moving average adds greater weight to the more recent trading history. All right. Whereas a simple moving average, it gives you the same, each data point in the series effectively gets the same weighting. Now, when it comes to shorter term time frames, I like using an exponential moving average. So I'm going to click on that, all right, and you'll see there it drops in a 9. I think it's 9, the default. Let's just go and click on that, right? If I click on format, again, yeah, look, it always seems to default to a 9-period moving average for whatever reason. Okay, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to change that to a 15-period exponential moving average, and I'm going to change the style as well. I'm just going to make it a little bit fatter, and I'm going to make it red. Okay, and I click on OK, and there it is, right? That's my 15-period exponential moving average on the hourly graph. And then what I may do now is also actually overlay a 50-period exponential moving average on that as well, 50. All right, so I've got both of those two moving averages, the exponential moving averages. There we go, there's the next one. Once again, it defaults it to a 9-period moving average. If I just simply go there and click on the format button for it, then what I can do is change that to 50 periods now, and I'm going to change the color because I don't want it that color. I'm going to change it to green. I'm going to make it a little bit fatter. Okay. And then I click on OK, and there it is. All right, for an hourly graph, that to me is sufficient now. Now what I want to do now is I'm going to save that. So I'm going to click on drop down, save as. and I'm going to call this Garth underscore hourly. All right, and there we go. There's that's saved. So now if I go and if I click on this load over here on the right hand side, notice I've now got the two different types of chart templates that I've set up. I can go and I can flick between my hourly and my daily my daily charts if I wish to. So if I want to go back to the daily, I simply click on it. All right, and there it is. There's the same analysis, the same moving averages, stochastics, RSIs, volume, etc. Everything else that I put onto that template before. And I can now go and play around, and I can go and look at other stocks. And let's just take a time to go and look at something else. Let's go and look at, for example, MTN right now. I type it in there, click on MTN. It brings up the daily chart of MTN now, and I can go now and play around. I can go and draw trend lines on this graph, and let's do that. Let's play a bit and see what we can come up with in terms of an analysis and whether there's anything we should be doing here on this. The first thing I immediately want to do is I want to put in some trend lines. So what I'll do is I'll go and open up on the right hand side here the drawings toolbar. Notice that little arrow on the left there, and when I hover my mouse over it, it shows me drawings toolbar. So I click on that, right, and there we go. I want to put in some trend lines, so I'm going to start by just drawing a trend line. Just draw it from there to there for argument's sake. Right, again, I can format that. I can make it a bit fatter. I can change the color as always, make it blue, etc. What I would also do, just instinctively looking at this MTN graph now, is I would probably put in some horizontal lines, because I can see there's quite clearly some step-like trading activity that's happening here, where it goes up, finds a range, steps for a bit, then moves back up sideways, and then forms another step higher. So let's put in some horizontal trend lines here now. All right, there's one. I'm going to just change the format of that, again, make it a bit fatter, and I'm going to make it blue. Right, there's that. Let's do it again. Let's put another one up here. Right, there's another one, and put another one above it. You can see how these horizontal trend lines have tended to capture the trading ranges for periods where the stock steps up and then breaks out, trades in another range. Okay. All right, so and if I now want to go and I want to say, okay, let's have a look at MTN. It's hovering around this 50-day moving average. What's it going to do? Is it going to go higher? Is it going to go lower? I can go and now load the hourly graph again, and there we go. I've got that hourly template, and it brings up the different analysis, different moving averages. All right, notice how the stochastic oscillator is gone, etc. Now I'm looking at an hourly graph over here. All right, so those are the sort of very basic templates that I would look to set up in terms of a daily graph and an hourly graph for myself. And it makes my life a lot easier by having all those templates set up and saved, and then I can simply flick between all the stocks in my watch list and analyze them one by one without having to each time go and create all the different indicators and moving averages and so on and so forth. All right. I think we're 45 minutes into the webinar, and I'm going to open a bit of time for questions and answers now. Ishmael from Standard Bank OST is also here, and he's asked me if I can make him a panelist, and so that he can also answer some questions. So I'm just going to quickly try and do that if I find him. But in the meantime, if you guys have any questions you would like to ask, please just pop them in the questions box, and I'll do my best to answer them. And if I can't, maybe Ismail might be able to answer. I'm just quickly going to create him as an admin on this, or as a panelist rather here. Ismail, there we go. Right click, and I'm going to make a panelist. There we go, Ismail. You are a panelist. Yes. Okay, just say something, please, Ismail. See if I can hear you.
Perfect.
Hi, are you there?
Thanks. Yes, thanks, Garth.
All right. I don't know whether you can see some of the questions as well in the questions box there now, Ismail, or not, if you want me to read them out for you. If we've got
no, I can't.
You can't see that.
If you can read them out for me, I'll answer them, yeah.
All right. So Gary asks, is ViewPoint for local stocks only?
At the moment, yes, there are international indices and there are foreign currency market data that you can see. But in terms of trading, it's only for local trading.
Okay, all right. And then Cassinia asked, how do I register to use ViewPoint? I don't know whether you want to answer that now, or whether she should maybe pop you an email.
Now, well, I think registration is automatic on the ViewPoint Basic package. So you should already be registered for ViewPoint Basic. If you would like to upgrade to a ViewPoint Live package, you can click on the ViewPoint tab after you log into the online share trading site.
Okay, super. All right, and then there's a Mark asking here, can we trade currencies on ViewPoint?
No, only currency futures, not the actual spot FX.
All right, okay.
But you can view 15-minute delayed prices on the spot FX.
All right, super. And then Ben Jacobs asks, can one compare more than 2 shares at the same time? I suppose that's something I can quickly answer for you, Ben. You can do that. Let me just quickly show you. I'm going to just go back to my daily chart over here, and let's look at what have we got here? Standard Bank. Let's say, for example, we now want to look at more than one banking stock. We want to do a comparison of First Rand. And what I do is show you what I did there. I'll click on compare, right? And then I'm going to type in the security, so that I'm going to type in FSR for First Rand. Okay, and there you go. There's the chart of First Rand. Now it does become a little bit messy. I'm going to just change the color so that you can see it more clearly. Let's just make it a brighter blue like that. There we go. And then again, if you said, could you compare more than one? So if I want to compare another one now, I simply go back to, again, that compare button, click on it, and let's put in ABSA, for example, ABG, and we'll make ABSA we'll put it in as red because ABSA is red, right? Let's make the style and red. Okay, right, and there you can see, let me just take off the moving averages just so that it's not so messy. But there you can see the comparison of the 3 different banking stocks that I've spoken about there. Okay, so we've got Standard Bank being the default, which is the candlestick chart. Then we've got First Rand, which is the blue one, and then you've got ABSA, which is the red one. Okay, and that's how you can compare more than one. And you can add more than that. You can continue, keep going if you wish, adding stocks. Quite interesting to note the correlation between those 3 banking stocks over the last couple of months there. All right, let's just have a look what other questions we've got that we should answer here quickly. Okay, Wanda asks, why doesn't the 200 moving average load on the hourly chart? Okay, well, look, I mean, you can add a 200 moving average on an hourly chart if you want to, Wanda. I think maybe, I'm not sure whether I'm understanding your question correctly. You can add it onto an hourly chart if you want. It's 200 periods then that would be measured over an hourly graph. So the reason I didn't put it onto my graph is just because that's not one of the indicators that I use. But you certainly can add a 200 period moving average onto an hourly graph if you wish to. All right, then Stephen Porter asks, is ViewPoint a good option for end-of-day trading compared to other software packages? Yeah, Stephen, I think it is. You know, I've used a number of different charting packages over the years. I mostly use Metastock myself, and the only reason I do that is because old habits die hard. I've always used it. I know my way around it very, very well, and I'm happy with it. But, you know, I also acquired it at a time when most brokers didn't offer technical analysis packages as part of their offering. So you needed to get an alternative purpose-built technical analysis package. Nowadays, most brokers will offer you a technical analysis package as part of their offering, as I'm showing you right here. If you're a Standard Bank OST client, you get access to this ViewPoint functionality as part of being a client. So is it adequate for end-of-day trading? Yes, I firmly believe it is. And I think if I was starting out now, wanting to do technical analysis, I don't think I would actually spend the money on a purpose-built technical analysis package anymore like I did back in the day. I think that these platforms like the one I'm showing you here, ViewPoint, actually are more than adequate and can do pretty much everything or almost everything that a purpose-built technical analysis package can do. So yeah, I think you can use it as an end-of-day trading package quite honestly. Yeah, I really do. Johan Besson asks, does this provide a scanning facility, such as new 12-month high? I haven't picked that up while I've been playing with it. Ismail, I don't know whether you can answer that question. Just tell me if you want me to read it again.
No, I don't think it does.
It doesn't offer a scanning facility. Okay, yeah, I didn't think so. I tried to play around and see if I could find one, but I didn't find that. That is perhaps where a purpose-built technical analysis package might be a little bit more powerful. But I think you're reaching for the sort of the top 10% of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs in terms of technical analysis. I think if you're doing that, for most basic needs, I would say that this viewpoint covers 90% of what you need it to do in terms of technical analysis, I think. All right, Alex is asking, can you trade options, covered calls through this?
Not yet. It's definitely in the pipeline. We are looking to introduce it soon. I can't give you exact timelines yet, but it's definitely in our pipe.
Yeah. Okay. Super. And then Alan says labels for indicators would be useful. Yeah, if you can remember that to use an indicator in RSI. There are actually labels on here. For some other reason, mine are they're actually white. The text is white on a white background. That's why it's come up funny like that. Let me just quickly see whether I can fix that. Because there is actually, I mean, there are definitely labels on the background over here. They've just come up white for some other reason, and I don't know why can't I change that. Okay, I'd have to just double check that. I'm not going to waste too much time on it now because there are other questions. Ishmael, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I'm saying that you can also change to the black theme. So if you go on the top right of the viewpoint, you can change the whole theme to be the black theme. I know some people prefer the black, because of the glare of the white. I think right on top on the hamburger menu.
Like that. Yeah. Okay.
And also the entire viewpoint. If you go right to the top on the hamburger menu, you can change your entire viewpoint setup to be the black theme.
Okay. All right. I'm with you. Okay. Again, it's one of those cosmetic things that you can play around with to suit yourself. All right. Stan Long says, can one get an explanatory list of securities and their codes? Stan, what I would do in that case, if you're not sure of a share code, you simply type it, just start typing the name in here. So let's just, I'm going to the top left window here. Let's say, for example, I didn't know what the share code was for Telkom. What I can do is I simply start typing the name in, TELK, all right, and then eventually it comes up, there we go, Telkom State-Owned Company, SOC, TKG is the share code, and then I can click on that. So it does give you the ability to search for share codes if you don't know what the company's share code is. All right, Dose the Income's asking an interesting question here, Ismail. Can this data be exported?
Your data in your watch list can be exported to a spreadsheet.
Can it be? Okay. All right. So data in your watch list. All right. Okay. Super. And then Angeline's asking me, please confirm that the periods for the stochastic oscillator on the daily chart are 14, 3, and 5. Yeah, that's correct. Let me just show you again. If I click on it here and I'll click on the format, there you get the inputs 14, 3, and 5. That's those are the periods that I typically use for stochastic oscillator for my own analysis. Right, what else have we got here? Then Stephen Porter, would you stick with a 15-minute delay option or pay live prices? No, Stephen, if you're trading short term to the extent where you're looking at 15-minute graphs, then you definitely should be paying for the live prices. If you trade only on end of day data, then maybe you can get away with not trading on live price data. But if you're looking at a 15-minute graph, it probably means that you're trading fairly short term. Then I would say definitely it's worthwhile paying the price for live prices, I think. All right, and then Matthew Hallows asks, can you import sends announcements, Ismail?
No, the send announcements are available as a separate widget.
Okay.
So you can stream your sends announcements
Okay.
in ViewPoint. So
Okay.
I think in our next presentation we'll probably cover a little bit of that.
All right. Okay, super. All right, great. There's no more questions that I can see, so I think we may as well end it there. We've been going for 55 minutes. It's been a good attendance, and thanks very much to all of you for your questions. That's been most helpful. And Ishmael, thanks very much for coming in at the end there just to answer those couple of additional questions as well. Appreciate it. That's it from me then. I will make this recording, the recording of this webinar available as well, and send it through to your guys, Ismail. I'll be back next week on the 25th of July to present my monthly market update. So I hope to see some of you guys there and then. Until then, have a good week. Thanks, everybody. Cheers.
Thanks, Stuart.